All right, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our weekly webinar for the Web Volume Contest. I'm really excited about tonight's topic because we've been doing a whole bunch of expanding of our network, a whole bunch of strategies to meet new prospects so that we could beef up our warm contact list. And if you've been implementing even some of the strategies that we've been covering over the past 4 weeks, then you probably do have a lot of stuff in the funnel that's going to require some really good follow-up. And so what tonight's webinar is going to really cover are some successful strategies and specific tips that you can apply so that your follow-up can be as effective and as efficient as possible. Have officially passed the first third of our web contest period, and so I couldn't think of a better time than now than to start really going into detail with these follow-up strategies. Like I said, if you've been implementing even some of the strategies that we've been talking about, then you're probably working with a bigger quantity and quality of prospects than you have in the past. And so applying these new strategies that we're going to cover tonight is really going to be helpful in transitioning your people along from an evaluation process into being able to make a decision. So that is the purpose of tonight's call. So we will go through our reminders and I will talk about results, but the training topic is going to be all about successful follow-up strategies that you can start to implement now. And that, by the way, these strategies are strategies that you'll be implementing throughout the course of your experience with web centers. Because like I said in previous webinars, to have a healthy business, what you really want is a little bit of everything going on, right? You want people that are in that evaluation process that you're following up with. You want people that are ready to close, and you want people that are starting the evaluation process. And once you get all three of those things happening at once, that's when you know you have a healthy business that's running, and that you don't have to worry about lulls in sales or anything like that. You have something really working in your favor. All right, so with that being said, let's go through some quick reminders. Webinars are recorded, and all successful recordings, along with their corresponding presentations, are being made available at webvolumecontest.com. All you've got to do is click on Webinars and Support, and you'll be able to view the videos and download the PDF. Now, these webinars are generally being uploaded as early as the very following day, so usually they've been up by Tuesday. Question and answer sessions are not recorded, so to listen in on those, you just have to attend the live recording. Results. We're getting better at this, but there's still several people that when they report their results, they're labeling their contacts. Really important, guys, that you're only entering in numbers when we're asking for the amount of, how many appointments you said or how many appointments were completed, those kinds of things. Also, if you're going to put in a 0, just please make sure that you actually put in the number 0 and not the letter O. It just makes it makes calculating the spreadsheet just a little bit more complicated. And so if you could just do that and only report numbers, that'd be really helpful for me on Monday mornings. Again, we've been looking through Facebook, lots of great questions, lots of great responses. Everybody continue to interact. I'm telling you guys, it's so funny. When I look at the people that are interacting on these groups and when I look at the results that are popping through, it's no coincidence, right? The people that stay engaged there's a level of accountability there. And if you've ever done a fast track, either with me or just even a traditional fast track, or you've run one, you realize that accountability is a really big factor in determining how much we stay engaged and how long we can stay the course. And by just simply posting in that Facebook group and interacting with each other, like, you're just more plugged into what's going on. And so that just encourages you to go out and make your calls. It's all it takes is just a little bit of interaction, a little bit of accountability to keep you going so that you don't fall off. So continue to do that, and continue to ask your questions there. And by the way, you guys, there's just one other thing. I'm sure we've talked about this briefly, but there's a real nice benefit to asking these kinds of the questions that we're seeing in Facebook. There's a big benefit there. I mean, besides the fact that you're going to get multiple perspectives and points of view and different kinds of experiences that people have had where they share their responses with you, but by putting that question in the Facebook group, it allows other people to see the responses as well. And so we get to benefit not only from the questions that we ask, but also the questions that we read. So again, just continue to interact there. multiple benefits to doing that, and keep up the good work there. So let's take a look at the results. Week 4 was an incredible week. It was even better than last week. I was sharing with Jeremy and with Dennis today, actually at the Market America Shop.com headquarters in North Carolina this week. And I was just sharing with them that this has really just been such a success so far. I mean, we just have to continue to work like we've been working, continue to stay plugged in. People are just staying in the game more than they have in any other fast track that we've run anyway. And we're seeing the results, and we're seeing the adaption. And so just know, when you look at these results and when I share these results with you, just understand that it's about stay power. If you can stay plugged in, if you can continue to follow up, and continue to prospect and apply some of these strategies that we're talking about, you're going to enjoy the results that we're seeing. 17 website sales last week. That was really great. 11 grand in retail profit, $30,000 in product sales, 14 personally sponsored. You guys, that brings our total web sales for the first 4 weeks to 64. With 80, I mean, that's incredible. $147,000 in product sales, 72 personally sponsored, 751 tickets purchased to the next major event, 142 web centers trainings that were attended. You guys, those are incredible results. But like I have said, and I don't just say this, but what gets me really, really excited for you guys and for us as a group is looking at the result above. When you see that in 4 weeks, over 8,000 contacts were made, and all of these appointments have been set, and some of these appointments have been completed, you realize that it's just like spring. It's springtime now, right? You plant seeds, and what happens? You have to water them. They have to take sunlight in. They have to have time to root and to grow. And the website sales process and building your own franchise is very similar to that. It takes some time, but when you effectively follow up, like we're going to talk about tonight, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so you just have to have that stay powered. You just have to do the follow up so that you can enjoy the results that we're seeing on the bottom tier here, like everybody else is, if you haven't enjoyed them yet. And one other thing, if you are part of this group of people that have sold 64 websites and personally sponsored, and you're seeing those results, I'm encouraging you to stay engaged, because when you do experience that kind of success right off the gate, sometimes, human nature is to slow down. And so I'm encouraging you not to do that. You really, really want to be shooting for that healthy business synergy that we've been talking about, where you've got people that are prospecting and that you're prospecting now, people that are evaluating the system now, and people that are ready to buy now. So don't slow down. Don't slow your process down, because when you do that, all you do is you start yourself over, right, like at the beginning of the process again, where you have to start prospecting and start putting them through the evaluation process. And it just slows down your overall progress, where you could be seeing results on an ongoing basis. Now you're going to see them every couple of weeks as you do one prospect at a time. So leverage yourself, leverage your time more, and keep that process going. So, like I said, if you've been applying some or all of these strategies that we've talked about in the past 4 weeks, and I gave you some of them, you probably have a ton of people that are going to require follow-up, or that require follow-up right now, right? We've covered strategies for working inside of warm markets, using the names list generator from the Getting Started guide. We've talked about prospecting people with urgency, where the timing is right, like seasonal businesses, for example, contractors. In week 2, in week 3, we talked about prospecting people inside of familiar industries that you felt comfortable talking about their business, right? And then last week, we covered strategies for working with not-for-profit organizations, or just organizations in general, right? 501(c)s. We talked about that process. So, I mean, like I said, even if you only picked one of these and you've been just really working that one strategy really hard, if you've been doing that consistently, follow-up is going to be critical, right? We've been saying this from day one. It's a process. There's follow-up and there's timing involved. But follow-up is an action that we have to take. So what I want to do tonight is I want to cover some things that really work with the website sales process for follow-up. So before we do that, is follow-up important? Well, yeah, it's absolutely important. I want to share with you two sets of statistics because once you realize what the statistics around follow-up are in sales in general, I think you're going to have a whole new perspective on how important and how critical follow-up really and truly is to your success. These are general sales statistics. These are not unique to us. This is not us making up statistics based on a small group. This is sales in general. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. That's it, just 2%. 3% are made on the second, 5 on the third, 10 on the fourth. But 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact, right? That means that 20% of sales are given to people that make 4 contacts or less. 80% are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Just keep that important number in mind. Now, 48% of salespeople will never follow up with a prospect, which is crazy because if you're in sales and this is your industry, you should know how important follow up is. But 48% of salespeople will never follow up with a prospect. On the contrary, 12% of salespeople will make more than three, right? So 12% will make more than three. Now, what does that mean? That means 48%, or really 48 plus this 25%, are working to enjoy 3% of the sales. They're fighting over 3% of the sales because they're only willing to make 1 or 2 contacts, right? Whereas 12% of the people that are willing to make more than 3 contacts get to enjoy 80% of the sales. So it's so interesting, right? It's this 12% of people that actually engage in follow up that statistically enjoy 80% of sales, while the other people that are going to give up after 1 or 2 have to fight and scrimp and scramble over 2% of the possibilities there. So, I'm asking you, what group of people do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be a part of the majority of people that have to fight over 2% of the success, or do you want to be part of the successful 12% that enjoy 80% of the success? It's no coincidence that that 12 that there's a correlation here. Follow up is critical. So is it important? Absolutely. I mean, you can, like I said, you can scrimp and scramble over 2%, or you can just do a little bit of extra work, stay engaged, be organized, do the follow up, and have a bigger chance for success. So follow up is important, but one of the things that you can do to really make your follow up very effective is to be proactive for a better follow up, where you're setting the stage so that you're setting this stage for success, is what I like to call it, right? You're being proactive so that um, you're very prepared for the appointments and you're very prepared for the kind of follow up that you have to have. So one of the things that you can do to be proactive is to simply qualify a prospect before the appointment. And how do you do that? You do that by asking high quality questions because, if you're asking high quality questions, then you're really identifying some specific needs, but also you're going to identify some specific roadblocks or challenges that you can expect, right? When you're talking to a website prospect and they're sharing with you a little bit about what they're doing, or maybe they're sharing with you a little bit about experiences they've had with websites in the past, not only are you going to identify things that they need, but you're probably going to identify, you know, um, whether they have some concerns or some things that they're nervous about. For example, I've talked to somebody this weekend at the home show that I attended, and I was talking to them, and they had had a really really bad experience with a local web designer, and so they were a little bit weary with the whole process. And it was one of those things where we had to tell them, not all of these experiences are not the same, and so really that's unfortunate that you had that experience, but I would hate to see you miss out on an opportunity to really market your business. You do such a good job, because of one bad experience with one bad person. But again, me knowing that this particular candidate had a bad experience with a specific process, it readies me for the kind of concerns that are going to come up. It readies the product specialist for the kinds of things that they're going to have to overcome. So by asking enough questions and really qualifying the prospect, your appointment is just going to happen better, right? Because you're going to be more prepared. Another thing you can do is to conduct that 15-minute consultation. We've talked about this in the past. You can download this at www.mawc411.com, And if you click on training and support and down to resources and downloads, you'll be able to download it. And all it is a series of questions that allows you to identify needs. But more than identifying needs, again, they're really important talking points. So, your prospect in the process of answering these questions may volunteer some of their own concerns that they have. But again, you're just setting a very quality appointment at this point. And so chances are, you're gonna address, or the product specialist will address all of the needs that they have, but also that they'll be ready for any possible objections that may come up. Another little tip is, um, and I actually got this idea from watching a commercial on television about doctors. So I was watching this commercial, and it was something about writing your questions down when you go to your doctor's appointment, so that you remember to ask them about specific things. And I said, you know what, that's such a good idea. I also go through that, where I go to the doctor and I had a bunch of questions, but for whatever reason, when I'm at the appointment, I draw a blank and I forget to ask the doctor all the questions I wanted to ask them. So, so anyway, I said, wow, we should really be encouraging our website prospects to do the same thing, because I'm sure, as with any other appointment, it's no different here when they attend their website appointment. So one of the things you can do, um, in addition to really qualifying your prospect and or doing a 15-minute consult, is to encourage your business owners, your prospects, to write their questions down, so that when they come up to their appointment, they have them in front of them. And all that does is expedite the evaluation process for them. And it also makes the appointment more thorough for them. So when the appointment is over and they say, you know what, I did have a couple of more specific questions that we didn't seem to go over. Can I ask it? Can I ask you now? They get their questions answered sooner. So again, it just expedites the evaluation process, and it makes it more efficient for you, right? The more aware of you are of their specific needs and the possible objections, and the more prepared they are for the appointment to ask the questions that they may have already, preconceived, the faster and the more effective the entire process goes. So one very important thing that you just need to get a handle on it. If you don't have good organizational techniques or skills right now, this is something that you're just going to have to get together. With all the prospects that you've been working with, and staying in contact with, it's more vital now than ever that you're organized, because there's so many strategies and so many prospects that you've been implementing, that to keep everybody's details organized in your brain and straight, and to apply the techniques I'm going to share with you now, it's going to become next to impossible, I promise you. So, if you don't stay well organized and follow up, somebody else will. So I am encouraging you to be that person. And when I say somebody else, I'm not talking about other web center owners. I'm talking about your competition. And what's going to happen is they're going to capitalize on all of the work that you've done to build value into setting that appointment, to create urgency, that all of that work that you did to get the prospect ready to make a decision. If you're not following up and somebody else is, then they're going to know. I mean, that business owner knows that they need a website. They're going to know that they need it sooner than later, because you've done a good job of setting that stage. But if you're not following up, and your local yellow page guy is, guess who's going to get the sale, right? The person that followed up. So it's very, very important that you're organized, so that you can actually be on time and follow up when you're supposed to, so that you don't lose out, and so that other people don't come in and say, well, you know, it sounds like you're ready to make a decision. Let's set up an appointment here, and then they end up capitalizing on all the work you put in. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen with the business, and I've seen it happen with website sales. I've seen it happen in sales in general. So like I said, if you don't want, you just have to commit to being organized, so that you can be timely, and you can be specific with your follow up. Speaking of being specific, this is very important. I keep incredible detailed notes on all of my prospects. And I do that because when I schedule my follow-up time, and I do that, I actually book out times during my week where I'm going to dedicate to following up with website prospects and business prospects. But I have my notes in front of me so that when I pick up the phone or I'm reaching out to someone on text message or whatever, I have all the details in front of me so that I can say, hey, for example, this is somebody that I met, and I didn't put all their specific details on here, but I put some dummy information on there. But one of the companies like R&R Roofing, I can call up and I know that the secretary's name is Donna and that the business owner's name is Jim. And I know that their current website is such and such. I know what their phone number is so I can actually call them. I don't have to go digging for that when it's time to follow up. I have some notes. So what I would do is I would pick up the phone, and by the way, this isn't somebody that actually scheduled an appointment yet. This is just someone I have to follow up with that's at the beginning of the evaluation process, right? And I'd say, hey, Donna, it's Sarah Rose. How are you? How have things been going? Awesome, awesome. Listen, I was just actually calling to follow up with Jim. Is he available? And then I would get patched through because I was just friendly because I actually remembered Donna's name. And Donna appreciates that. Trust me, you have no idea how many people treat the gatekeepers, we call them in sales, with not enough respect. And honestly, they run the world. So make sure you remember their names because they're the ones that get to decide whether or not you get patched through. So anyway, I also have my notes up in front of me, and it says to follow up the first week of April, which is right now, right? So I write that down and I actually schedule that into my calendar, and then I have a couple of quick notes. I spoke to him at the home show. He hates his current site. There's actually a bunch of other notes that I had written down as well. This way, when I actually get patched through to Jim, I can say, oh my gosh, Jim, it was really great to meet you at the home show. How was the event for you? Was it a successful event? Awesome. Did you guys get a lot of leads? Great, great. Well, I'm happy to hear it. Listen, the reason I'm calling is you and I had spoken, and you asked me to follow up the first week of April. You said you weren't really happy with your site and the fact that it was X, Y, and Z. So listen, I know you're probably really, really busy from all the work that you just probably and estimates that you have to do from the home show. But I'm just trying to figure out what's a good time this week that we can meet for you. Great. Okay, Thursday morning, perfect. You know what? I have got some time at 9 a.m. Does that work for you? Awesome. Let's go ahead and book that time. And that's it, right? I'm not sitting there. I'm not trying to sell them a website or anything. I just have my notes open so that I can actually be real specific. I can be friendly and I can build upon the relationship that I had already started to work when I had first met him at that home show, right? So again, establishing that connection, that's what builds the rapport. That's what builds the trust, the loyalty. That's what makes them buy me even before they've done the website appointment, is the fact that I'm so personable, the fact that I'm so specific that I remember their names. Does that make sense? So anyway, again, that's at the beginning stages of the evaluation process. This person hasn't even seen the appointment yet. So now when they do the appointment, and when I do have to do even more follow-up after the appointment is over, I'll have even more notes written down here so that when I call up Jim and I have to talk to Donna again, I'm still personable, and I have very specific things in mind that I'm going to follow up with them about. Another thing that you can do, now this isn't appropriate for every single person on your list, but it's something that you can try. But it's called leveraging their competition. So again, it can be extremely helpful, but it needs to be handled in a very delicate way because you don't want it to come across as combative or aggressive. But here's the thing. If they know that their competition is doing other things that they're not doing, or their competition is outperforming them in website search or whatever, that can create some urgency where they may want to make a decision sooner. So, one of the things that you can say, again, if it's appropriate, is to say something like, hey, I was actually looking up your industry on Google and so showed up, but I couldn't find you anywhere. We may be able to help you out with that. Have you tried anything to show up? Right? Again, just kind of throwing little things out there can help to move them along to either schedule an appointment if you're following up with a lead that hasn't quite scheduled an appointment yet, or if they did schedule an appointment but they weren't sure, or they had some ambiguous questions. Sometimes people have specific questions after an appointment. Sometimes it's very ambiguous. Either way, this could really, really work in your favor because it gets them thinking about lost business opportunity that they're leaving on the table because they're not showing up and their competition is. Right. But again, you need to handle this with care. You don't want to come off as, so and so is better than you. But you do want to make them aware of the fact that this is not, you're not asking them to do something that isn't being done in their industry, that this is going to help them to compete in the marketplace so that they can leverage the search online as well. That's just a specific example. Now, what about answering questions? So again, there's going to be various questions that come up throughout the entire evaluation process. And the first thing you have to identify is, where are they in the process? Are they like the first example I gave you, where they haven't even set an appointment yet? Like maybe it's somebody that you met that you started to warm up, but you haven't scheduled an appointment? Or are they, is the follow up that you're doing because they have completed an appointment and now you need to get more specific questions answered, right? These are two different kinds of follow up that need to be happening simultaneously for you to be closing deals, right? So all too often people think when we talk about follow up, we're only talking about following up with people that have already seen a website appointment, but that's not true, right? You've got all kinds of prospects that you've been warming up or reaching out to that may not have even had an appointment yet, and they require follow up as well. So don't forget to follow up with those people. So have they set an appointment yet? If they did, why did they set one? What kind of qualifying did you do? How can you transition them into the next step, whether that's either a 15-minute consult or a full-on appointment? What's holding them back from scheduling an appointment? Figure that out, address that, and go ahead and book it. The second set is, have they completed an appointment? And if they did they have any specific questions on the call, and were those questions answered? What was the reason that they needed to hold off in making a decision? What were some of their concerns or their objections, right? And thirdly, how can you get the answers that they need so that they can have the information that they require in order to move forward, right? Second, who is going to handle that follow-up, right? Is it going to be the product specialist, or is it going to be you, or is it going to be both? If it's the product specialist, is it a scheduled follow-up where this person needs a specific time that they need to be followed up with? Or is it an approximate follow-up? Like, for example, the product specialist will follow up in a week. And how can you support this effort? Because even if the product specialist is doing the follow-up for you, for people that have seen the appointment, you just following up as well on a personal level can only add value. To say, how did your appointment go with the product specialist? Even if you were listening in on a three-way, great. Did you have any other questions? Oh, you did? Awesome. Did you write them down? Great. So did you let the product specialist know? I just want to make sure that our people are taking really good care of you and that they're answering your questions. Awesome. Really, really great to hear that. So again, you don't have to answer the questions, but you can support that effort by just giving them a VIP experience. All right. If you're the one answering the questions, then you need to be very specific. When are you going to follow up? Make sure you schedule it. And is there any information that you need to get for them so that when you do follow up, you have the answers to the questions that they have? And finally, another good strategy for successful follow-up is to create urgency. It can help to offer some sort of an incentive for them to make a decision sooner. So for example, I'm going to give you 4 examples. Number 1 is you can say to them something simple like, listen, if you can make a decision within the next 2 weeks, we're going to extend a $100 discount. Right? Or you can run a special. Create a special. You can run a special on your own. You can call it whatever you want to do. But whatever it is, it needs to be time sensitive. It needs to have a start date and an end date. And it needs to be a special that's exciting, but that doesn't devalue the product. Like, for example, that if you make a decision in the next 2 weeks, we'll extend a $100 discount. $100 is $100. I'd do it to save $100. But if you say something like, oh, I'll give you 50 to 75% off, then guess what happens? If they're not willing or able to make a decision in 2 weeks, then they're going to say, oh, well, I missed out on that great, great deal. And I guess now I have no sense of urgency at all. So you don't want to make the incentive so big that it works against you. Also, you don't want to ever devalue your product. Another thing you can do is you can offer a payment plan to get them started sooner. And your product specialist can offer this as well. You don't have to know how to do this. But MA Web Centers allows your business owners to make a single upfront payment and then split the balance over 3 additional months. So if the issue is cash flow, this is a really great option to help them get started sooner. And finally, you can use the time period to your advantage. So for example, if you're working in seasonal industries, where they need to get a website up and running in the next 3 to 4 weeks, make sure you play into that when you're following up. Make sure you use that, as one of your key points to push for the sale. And the product specialist will do this for you again on your behalf. Another thing is like high points within specific industries. So for example, Mother's Day or Christmas or Hanukkah are big, big times for jewelry sales and, those retail shops. So think about these things when you're following up and little tidbits that you can plug when you're following up so that you're not just answering questions, but you're also creating urgency. So just as a quick recap, follow-up is absolutely critical. You need to be proactive. Make sure you're positioning yourself to have a purpose to follow up. Make sure you're setting quality appointments, doing those 15-minute consults, encouraging people to write their questions down so that they get the most out of their appointments. Be on time with your follow-up, and you do that by being organized. So that you actually follow up when you're supposed to. If someone says to follow up the first week of April and you don't do it till the third and somebody else did, guess what? You may lose that sale, right? Stay organized so that you can be personable and specific when you actually follow up. Try leveraging your competition when it's appropriate, and have a clear action plan for how you will follow up and what specific issues you will be addressing during your follow up, or if your product specialist will be doing these. Again, this information and this recap will be available on the recording and on webvolumecontest.com. So make sure that you guys download this and you really, really implement these strategies for follow-up. All right, guys, thank you so much for tonight. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to leverage the holidays and how to do a halfway point assessment of your own personal activity on this particular, 12-week process. So, there's some big holidays that are coming up the week after next. So what I want to do is give you strategies that you can use during the holiday season so that you don't lose that week to being really, really productive. I'd rather you use that to your advantage. All right, guys. So thank you so, so much. And we'll see you throughout the week on Facebook. And have an excellent week, everybody.